everyone, Zack here with our new episode of edX Office Hours and very special guest, Jon. What's up, Jon?
Hey everyone. Hi Zach. It's great to finally be on. It's been a couple months since I've been on one of these Office Hours live stream things. Oh, I just got blurry. Sorry about that.
No worries. Maybe do like that over your camera. I don't know. That helps mine.
Nope.
Oh well. We'll live with. Oh, there it did. It did it.
I should stop moving so much, but I'm so I'm excited.
There you go. I'm excited too. My camera sucks, so that's okay. But welcome everyone here. So Jon recently came out with an article on using NX and microservices. Let me grab a link to that article right here. I'll put it in chat if you want to follow along. I was able to read through it. It's a really cool kind of like step-by-step instruction on how to use NX to set up like sort of like a microservice web for inside of NX, and it uses Docker, something I think is really cool, but not entirely familiar with it. So looking forward to hearing from Jon a little bit more about how we can use it effectively in NX. So yeah, Jon, can you maybe and this is something I'm curious about. Can you maybe define microservices for us?
Oh yeah. So microservices in itself are little pieces of like a whole application that are maintainable and testable. They pretty much could be like individually deployed and scaled depending on what you need for each individual one. So in the example, in the blog post I wrote, we have two services. One was the HTML part and one was the API part. Each one of those ones are their own individual services in the grand scheme of the application. So if we wanted to have 10 servers handling the API side, we could scale that up with whatever services we want to use, like with Kubernetes or Docker Compose or whatever other ones that you want. And if we have a couple of services or a couple of servers to handle the HTML part, because it might be a little bit lighter, we could have two. Right, so that makes everything like super scalable and like infinitely scalable.
Yeah.
Depending on your budget, I guess.
So the idea is what could have been like this monolith, we're breaking up into smaller atomic parts, and because they're in these smaller atomic parts, we can actually scale one piece of that to fit traffic rather than having to scale the entire monolith.
And if you find like an issue in one of the services, you could individually deploy that part so that you don't have to redeploy the whole application and however long that takes. But usually if you do that, you need to have like good like orchestrator, and that's like with Kubernetes and all that stuff. Because you want to make sure that nothing goes down, and Kubernetes handles all that, where it'll kind of gradually upgrade one part where it'll shut down half the nodes and upgrade the other half and all that.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you have to be careful that you don't break APIs and all that stuff. So it's a version stuff.
Yeah.
APIs.
Well, I'm always curious because I hear these things bounce around a lot, and I've been around containers enough that I know like how to start up Docker, how to run that stuff. Not really gotten involved with any like deployments with there, and it's kind of fuzzy to me where Kubernetes or where Docker ends and Kubernetes begins.
Okay, so Docker, I like to think of Docker or the Docker images as almost like NPM packages, right? Okay. So you would package it up into like an image and deploy it or upload it to some repository.
Okay, so that's like an image repository for your Docker.
Yeah. So there's like Docker Hub, there's like AWS and Google Cloud ones where you could deploy your images either publicly or privately and all that stuff. And then with like whatever other orchestrator, Kubernetes or Docker Compose, you could basically say when you try to get images, pull from this repository, similar to like NPM with the NPM RC, right? And then the rest is handled with the tool. It'll download the image and scale it and whatever else it needs to do and start the container.
So just thinking about that, there's definite like obvious benefits to this for deployment. Is there also like benefits towards sharing? Like the idea being the image repo, I could just send someone an image of.
Yeah, for sure.
So
like this might not be about microservices in itself, but there's some examples of like some repos where they might or some projects that have some dependencies that you don't want to install on your computer, or it takes too long to install. And it'll be easier to just get the Docker container and run the command on that container. Like an example could be if you have, if you want to like, I guess modify like an image, you have so many dependencies you need to get. Like, I don't know the names, like MPEG or whatever. You don't want to install that and configure all that. So someone could just pre-configure an image for you. You download it, you go on there, and you don't have to do anything, right? So that could be the shareable part. I think even like nowadays, GitHub's enterprise server is like a Docker container, but don't quote me on that. If it is, that's cool. If not, then it's a VM. But like those little things that you could like share.
Yeah, very cool, man. Very cool. Before we get too much in the conversation, and to anyone watching, oh, by the way, let's say hi to people saying hi. Hi, Mohammed. Hi, Bharat. And hi, Dominic. Thanks all for coming and for hanging out with us. If there's anyone who has questions about microservices, go ahead and ask now, and we'll try to get to it as we go. If anyone has any questions about NX in general, John's on the core team for now. I think moving to console, but for now he's on the core team. We can probably answer some questions around NX as well. So go ahead and ask those now, and we'll get them towards the end. But John.
Sorry, to add to that, since I am going to be moving on to the next console, if anybody has questions about that, I'm all ears for that too.
Oh, I love the console, man. I think it's the perfect tool for discoverability of everything NX can do. So.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of ideas in my head to make it even better, especially with working with bigger projects and that kind of discoverability. But sorry, go ahead with what you were saying before.
Well, I was just going to ask you if you wanted to show the demo of what you did in the article there, so we can.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Let me just share my screen here then. Where is the button? You got it? Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of the article, I had a link to a repository where it basically had everything set up. And this is that same repository. It's just the Node Microservices one. And you could, I guess, follow along with it if anybody wants to get it themselves. But if you don't have Docker installed, just watch, because you're not going to follow along with that yet. It takes a while to install that. But yeah, we could go through a little bit of here. So I have the two services here, the API side, which just basically sends to-dos. It's nothing fancy. We could make it fancier maybe. But right now, we can make it fancy by probably reading from a database, or maybe like a WebSocket that people could all gather together and populate it if we had time to do that. And then we have the HTML part, which is just like it uses server-side rendering of just handlebars, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty generous. Well, I don't know. I think server-side rendering is being a big thing, but yeah.
This is server-side rendering.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're using handlebars to generate our to-do list. Okay, yeah, that's fair. This is server-side rendering.
Yeah, because the server it's on the server side and it's rendering it. How else can you define server side?
I don't know, man. I always think of, so for me, server side rendering is taking a client side app but serving it serving it or building it from the server on request. I guess that's kind of what it is, but yeah,
It's building this for each request too. I don't have this cached. I didn't think that far ahead, so it's building it for each request. Server-side rendering. So anyways, on this HTML app, it is calling, where are we? It is calling the actual endpoint for that other service that we have. There's some parts in here that I go through in the document, especially this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're running this locally, you won't be able to go into the, I guess, the container images and all that stuff easily. So there's like, I set up some environment variables so that we could get the communications inside the container and outside the container while you're developing it easier.
So if we're not running with the container, if we're just doing a regular serve, NX serve app.
Yeah, and then we go to localhost 3333. We could probably clean it up so that both of them are talking to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But just for this one, I showed that we could populate like environments and all that stuff.
Gotcha. Cool.
So yeah, that's pretty much all that is to this application. It's API and HTML.
Mm-hmm.
I have a libs here that just has the interface for the to-do, and it's shared between HTML and API so that those things can stay in sync.
Yeah. This is actually one of my favorite things about NX, especially for full stack app stuff. Beyond microservices, in a place where you have like an Angular or React front end that talks to a API that's inside the same repo, having the one interface shared between those is like really, really helpful. I think we don't use it enough. But.
Yeah, and I like it for components as well. Like if we have a React app and an Angular app, and then your components could be web components, then it's pretty much feature or framework agnostic and all that stuff, and it's good to share across that.
Yeah, being able to just break down some TypeScript API.
Yeah, for sure.
That maybe deals with like your business logic. Having that as something here could be used in your Node backend, could be used in your Nest backend, could be used in your Angular app, could be used in your React app, your Vue app.
Yeah, it could be used for like mocking as well.
Yeah, true that. So it's for like tests and end-to-end stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's all I have in the libs here. We could obviously add more. It's pretty much limited to your imagination, right?
Yeah. Do with it. Can we see it in action a little bit? Can you like do the serve it up with or serve up the containers and have Docker run them?
Yeah. So I had it done already, just because it takes a while to build all the containers. But with NX, we could pretty much run a lot of commands together. And and in here, I added special targets, which is basically a deploy. I just named it deploy. So the API one has a deploy, and the HTML one has a deploy. So with NX, we could basically say run all projects that have the target deploy.
Mm-hmm. Could I ask you what the Docker build step is doing? What is that, line 7?
Oh yeah, sure, for sure. So on the Docker build command, it basically is looking at the Docker file that we have in the root of each project. So basically saying Docker build with this file argument.
We broke
Docker, it. I know, we gotta get revert. Docker build with the file argument, and then this one's pretty much saying build it on the root, and I'm just tagging it with HTML.
Okay.
So because these commands should be run on the root of the workspace, we basically pass the relative path based on the root. So it goes apps HTML Docker file, and it's the same for the API part. It goes apps API Docker file.
Interesting. Okay, so that first step. So we're using run commands first of all, which is really cool builder for everyone out there who's looking for like a way to run several commands, or just like a something that you as you would type it on the command terminal, turning that into a executor. Very cool. Run commands is a perfect tool for that.
I had a chaining multiple commands, so I had to do the build, and then I had to do the Docker build. And you can put any command in here, right? Mm-hmm. Anything your heart desires.
Yeah, and that line 18. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing your line numbers. Yeah, 18. Yeah, they're too light. But parallel pulse, that means we're running them in sequence as opposed to series.
For sure. So. Yeah, because if we run them in parallel, then Docker build will be like, hey, you don't have this file yet, you know?
Okay, so and that file is specified in your Docker file, right?
Yeah, so inside the Docker file, we basically have like standard Docker commands here, where we basically say the base image, we set up a work directory, and this is where it will copy the build artifacts of our application. So here it was like this apps HTML.
Yeah, and that's where the build's going to put our API app, or the distributable for our HTML app.
Yeah, so when we have build here, it has the output here.
Oh, perfect.
Right. So we could go back to the Docker file. And then here I set up different ports and all that stuff. You don't necessarily have to do this. You need to do this depending on your use cases and all that stuff. There's a thing here too where we have to do npm install. Thankfully with NX, because it knows based on your imports and your dependencies, we could determine which kind of package dependencies that your application needs based on these imports. So that's a command. That's an option in the builder where it basically says generate a package of JSON, and it'll figure out whatever dependencies you have imported and create one for you automatically. Because usually with default node applications and NX, we don't put a Docker, or not a Docker, we don't put a package of JSON file because you usually need Docker or a package of JSON to specify dependencies when you do npm install or publishing to like npm or something. You don't really need to do that with applications, except if you're using Docker. But now we could generate the package of JSON.
Very cool. Yeah, this is a question we get a lot because for servers and for like stuff like serverless functions, it's like they need a JSON or a package.json, but the whole thing with NX is, well, you unify all your dependencies, so you have the one package JSON. I think Lerna goes the other way, where everything nested inside has its own package JSON. So this generate package JSON is kind of in support of that idea. NX is smart enough to know what you're dependent on based on your imports. So don't worry about it. We'll just make it for you on build. Is that kind of the idea?
Yep, pretty much.
Cool.
And if you do have a package of JSON, it'll merge things together for you.
Yeah. So when line 6 we're looking at right here, when we're running npm install, that's based on the package JSON that got generated from that step. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we could see it in here. So here's the one I ran recently.
Oh,
this
cool.
One is the HTML. And it has like the main and whatever assets we have because we needed the handlebars. But here's the generated package of JSON. It's as basic as it gets for package of JSON. So these are the ones that we actually used inside our application.
So we could see in there we had NestJS, we had Axios for making our requests. And I imagine, can we look at the package JSON for the API? Because we should see different dependencies there. Yeah. Cool. So we don't need Axios.
No, not for the API part, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's not making a request; it's just serving them. So yeah, it just needs Nest. Okay, that makes sense. So we can see the one project versus the other is trimmed to only what it needs.
So there's a limitation to that, actually.
Okay.
So we know when things are explicitly included because you call it, you import it, and all that stuff. But sometimes, especially with Nest, you need to install your pure dependencies, or you need to install additional dependencies that aren't used by you explicitly. So we have to put this in here just to make sure that Nest is satisfied with what it needs. I think right now we have a PR up by a member of the community that actually will populate the dev dependencies and pure dependencies for you automatically in that package.json. So keep an eye out for that. That one's going to be helpful. So you don't need to do this part. So after that, it'll Docker will install that, and then it will run that main.js file that we have here, which is a Webpack build of it.
Very cool.
So
and the Webpack build is that's provided with the Nest schematics.
No, that one is ours.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, so that one is, if we go back to Workspace, that one is the Nrwl node builder.
Oh, okay. Cool. So we're using Node Builder to build Nest.
Yeah, we're using a node builder to build Nest. So we use the node builder to build our node projects, anything that's basically run in the node umbrella.
Okay.
I know some people ask why use like Webpack and all that stuff. Why don't we just use like TypeScript directly and not have to worry about anything?
Mm-hmm.
It's good concern because a lot of people are like, why would I need Webpack for the server? And one of the big things about that is that we could provide Webpack with the path resolutions that we have in the tsconfig. So if we just use regular TypeScript won't rewrite the imports to this. So Webpack will do that for us, right? So it'll be easier to deploy our applications in this workspace rather than having to actually deploy it to like a registry and all that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So we have all that. That's the Docker stuff. Or the builders and the orchestration for building the application and packaging it with the Docker command. Yeah. So now if we run the command, run many with the all flags and the target deploy, it'll go through all the projects, find the deploy target, and pretty much do the build and the Docker build. So if we do that, you can see it doing all this magical stuff. And it was cached by both NxCloud and Docker. Docker caches its own steps. So yeah, in Docker, each step here, it will be cached.
Yeah. Very cool.
So the first time you do it, it'll take some time. Mm-hmm. Every time after that will be quicker.
Yeah. Well, so now, this was probably done by your local cache, right? Because
yeah, for sure.
On this one.
Yeah.
But if I was doing it, I could get it from NxCloud. So
eventually, yeah. Once everything is when I put the what's it called? The key in.
Oh yeah, okay. Gotcha. You're not set up there.
Yeah, it's not claimed yet.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, so this is the Docker cache you're showing here, though.
These are the images that are built.
Okay.
So if we go to Docker images, we can see this is the HTML one, and that's the API one, and those are the tags based on.
Yeah, we saw those. The tags you were setting inside the. Yeah, got it.
These ones are pretty much orphan ones.
Okay.
think if I remember correctly, Docker should have a command to clean those up nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a bunch of other ones.
Yeah.
It's for local Kubernetes and.
What were you doing 6 months ago, John?
What was I doing 6 months ago? I don't know. I think I installed Docker. I don't remember.
Nice.
16 months ago. What was I doing there? I didn't even have this laptop 16 months ago. So I don't know.
Oh. Yeah. Hey,
I was creative. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, this may be maybe let's jump into this question from Julian. Question about Docker: is it possible to use Docker for development environment using microservices and X mono repo? Should I copy the entire package JSON to each file? So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about already. Like I guess we're kind of showing right now this is kind of in development mode, right, John? So.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is in development mode where we had all these things set up already. So that each individual package JSON was generated. And if we could actually connect to the containers after, and we could see it. We could see the container running.
Yeah, so we could do it either way. We could serve each one of these by ourselves, just with the builder, or we could do like what John's doing here inside of his deploy commands, which is building, like doing a proper build, and then having Docker do the build, and then we'd call Docker up, and that would just kind of put Docker up, and we could essentially there. It's like we're serving. I guess there's no watch on it at that point, though. Huh?
No, it's pretty. Yeah, there's no watch on it. It'll be hard to do a watch. I haven't thought about doing a watch while it's in like a development mode like that.
Yeah,
but it could be possible. But when you're developing, your computer itself will be the container.
Okay.
Right? And I could show that a little bit after as well. But we could continue on with this just to show it like running.
Yeah.
So when everything is ready, we could do Docker compose up, and then it'll start the two images based on this. Right. So here's HTML1 and here's API1.
Okay, so this is Docker actually giving us like logs of what's happening. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So now let's go here and go localhost 8080. And okay. This is like the container exposing it. Like in here, we say it is exposed on 8080. Mm-hmm. And inside container is 3334. We actually go to the API as well. If we go 8081, I guess I changed that. There we go.
Okay, so there's our to-dos.
So those ones are exposed itself by Docker Compose.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Inside the container, the app will talk to this API.
Yeah.
Based on like this path, because it's like Docker Compose itself has its own like internal like switch, mm-hmm. where each container has its own name, and it's all this things. You should read up on the docs on Docker Compose, or whatever orchestrator you're running.
Well, so the interesting thing I'm noticing here is we have a Docker file for each one of our apps, for our HTML app and for our API app, but we have a Docker Compose at the root level that is, I guess, composing the different images, setting up the ports to map to what they need to map to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, and that like nowadays, like back in the day, showing my age, we didn't have this fancy tools where you could connect to containers.
Yeah, isn't this nice?
So you can see the two containers actually running.
This is like my exposure to Docker, by the way, John, is this GUI.
Yeah.
Like messing around with this GUI, I'm like, okay, I can do this well enough. But
back in the day, I had to know the commands to do this. And now I forgot because I don't need it anymore.
Nice.
So you can see like the stuff in here. Can we open this?
Yeah.
There we go. So you can see this package lock in here that was...
Yeah. Well, and going back to the second part of Julian's question here, I guess we kind of addressed this already, but like we using that command inside the builder that John was showing, the generate package JSON. Yeah, he's got it there. Yeah, it's just by setting that to true, NX will generate a package JSON for you on build, so you don't need to have one. Sorry, y'all. So you don't need to have one that you make yourself. NX will kind of magically do a trimmed one for you. So very cool there. Some questions here from Max. Max, hope you're doing well, man. Finally got to experiment with NX at work. I'm very excited. Question on, do you often write full integration tests with all of the services running? So this is something I wanted to latch on to, actually, when I saw you ask it, Max, because I love end-to-end tests. And this looks like, John, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but going through this process, making the containers, calling Docker Compose up, that sounds like we have a way to effectively, run an end-to-end test with your microservice web all set up.
Yeah, pretty much. So if you have Docker Compose up, you basically have your whole application running, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could probably use tools maybe like Postman or even Cypress. I think Cypress will be a pretty good.
Well, for this project, yeah, I think I actually do like Postman's ability to test. I'll use it. I actually don't know how to automate it, but
I think they have a command line for it.
Okay.
I think so.
I don't know. This has been a while since I've messed with that, but yeah, I love having Postman up for just like checking that kind of stuff while I'm working on it.
Yeah. But, so if you have for this particular one, I would probably use Cypress and just make sure everything is like communicating with each other with the Docker Compose up. And right. You can probably even put the whole thing inside its own container where it has Cypress, our image, and then run that on a CI easily. You could get like very Inception-y over here,
Yeah.
And then if you want, you could put that image inside another image.
What? This is getting weird. I kind of like so.
It's almost like Inception because the lower containers will get slower. No, I'm joking. Is it the other way around?
I forgot that. Yeah,
it'll be your computer going slower. That's for sure.
Nice. Here, let me jump into this because it seems like this may be leading into what you're talking about a little bit, John. So the preferred method of communication between server-side microservices.
Yeah,
so,
for me, I don't really have a preference. Like, what I'm using here is, I got lost. Controller. It's just Axios. One of the good things about Nest itself is that it actually has the microservices package where it'll communicate via like TCP and all that stuff where you don't have to do HTTP calls and all that.
Okay.
I have that.
Is that still pull based though? TCP?
TCP, UDP. I don't know which one it uses. I think it is TCP. It'll create a connection between your different services.
Okay.
Like it'll be in the actual NestJS. So in the documentation here, there will be a whole section about microservices here.
Oh yeah, neat.
And they have their own package, which is like NestJS and microservices. And yeah, it uses TCP.
Okay.
So you could use that rather than Axios or HTTP or whatever you need.
Okay.
I think
is the idea though that you'd still make a request to that service and it would come back, or would it be okay? So I'm trying to see. So an alternative to like a pull-based request and response would be like a shared bus between the microservices. What?
Yeah, I would like maybe WebSockets would be good.
Okay, I see they got RabbitMQ there for a message queue. I'm not super familiar with this world. I've got like the basics, but yeah, curious your opinions on it, John. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
Yeah, it depends on your use cases, right? There's so many. Like there's a saying I always say it's there's so many ways to cook a potato. Like how do you want your potato done, right? You want it mashed, you want it hard boiled, Yeah, and it's like a cooked potato.
Yeah. I can't have carbs, so this question is moot to me.
Okay, how would you cook your eggs? You could have a sunny side up. You can have I got your keto one there.
Now I'm intrigued. Okay, I see what you're saying. So different use cases probably fit better to the different technologies. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, pretty much. For like I use HTTP because it was the quickest one. I didn't have to do so much setup.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would have to like play around with what you want to do. But there's so many ways to actually communicate between the containers.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to know where the endpoints are.
Yeah. Hey, Chow. Nice to see you, man. Well, cool. Let's see. Well, we were going to talk a little bit, John, about Nest versus Node with the Nest documentation. Might be a good time to talk about that. I'm interesting, I feel like, because I love Angular on the front end side. I'm trying to learn React, but I love Angular on the front end side. Actually, on the back end side, Nest, I'm not actually crazy about. I thought I was going to be when I first got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into it, and it just felt very object oriented. I told you before the show, I've been bit by Spring Boot pretty bad. So anytime I see like these object oriented patterns in the back end, I get nervous. That may be why I don't like Nest, but I really like Node, just like pure Express, I guess, just basic Express with like the functional request handlers and that kind of stuff. It seems much more straightforward. So I don't know.
It is straightforward, but one of the things I like about Nest itself, which it actually got like inspiration from Angular, is the dependency injection, right? Like if I don't like before I used to make a lot of .NET APIs, and the dependency injection in that was good as well. Like I like Nest because it is in line with old school enterprise-y frameworks, I guess.
Yeah.
I like dependency injection. I wonder if there is actually a library that just has that dependency injection mechanism, and you could just put it with functions or whatever else.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Well, so I feel like I've thought this about Angular. I think a lot of people in React kind of have a similar idea, where like the dependency injection and like especially ng modules are kind of like this module system that like lies parallel, like not exactly parallel, but kind of parallel to just node modules and how that works. And like dependency injection, yeah, that would be nice, but can't you just import a function instead? I don't know.
Yeah. You can.
That's kind of where I go. Like anytime I would have reached for like dependency injection, I feel like I could have just like imported an object or imported a factory to create that object from just basic node stuff. So I don't know. Yes. Is that fair? Is there something I'm missing with dependency injection?
I feel like there is.
Yeah.
Like there's a big part of it. Like the thing with like you could make like a rudimentary dependency injection thing yourself, right? Let's say if you have a constructor or a function that takes different parameters. You want to be able to kind of like mock those arguments or parameters or whatever else easily, like at least in like in a unit test. Or let's say you have like a database connection thing, and you want to be able to connect to multiple databases by using the same API. Kind of, you want to provide different providers to whatever class or function is using that database connection.
Yeah, so different providers as dictated by the context we're in. Is that kind of the power of the dependency injection?
Yeah.
Okay.
and it's just easier to manage too. Like if you have a dependency, and then that dependency has a dependency, and that dependency has a dependency, it
Yeah.
gets really complex. And if you're doing it by yourself, you got to make sure you do the order right. And
Yeah.
the order matters so much, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. We're getting a lot of action in the chat here, so I want to make sure we're giving them their due. Chow says NestJS selling point is the structure itself. Excuse me. Angular inspiration is just one approach that Camille took. It's quite opposite with your point. Yeah. So Camille is the creator of NestJS. Awesome work they're doing over there. I want to clarify my point too. I'm very impressed by the work they do, and like any kind of open source work. Very cool. And very impressed by everything they're able to do. My preference for Node, I think, is more exactly that, just a preference, and not trying to throw shade on it, and but also trying to understand from Jon, who I think likes Nest, from what you've said, like making sure I'm not missing something there. So it's honest.
Yeah, I like Nest because it's structured.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point. Like I say the same thing about Angular versus React. I think that's the big things I like about Angular over React.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's a lot more opinions in Angular, and it's once you might there might be a little bit of learning curve, but once you get past that, everything just grooves better.
Yeah,
it's the same with Nest. They have their opinions and what you could do with the modules and all that stuff, but once you get it, it's pretty nice.
Yeah. And coming from Angular, I was like, well, I like Angular, I'll like this. But then I found like, well, I don't really like that about Angular. I feel like almost, so I don't know.
Modules.
Well, yeah, like I said, it feels like two systems that are on top of each other when they could be flattened into one. I feel like in React, it very much feels that way. In Node, it very much feels that way. So I don't know. It's just some thoughts there. But more love for Nest here, the way it offers Angular-like structure. Totally appreciated framework. Chow says, people usually feel dangerous when they start using JavaScript on the back end. It's too flexible. Yeah, I think this is going to your point, right, Jon?
Yeah. Like you could do stuff that's
well, yeah,
the context of the app.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole thing with Node, and this is one of the big pushes for Dino is like Node. In the web we're sandboxed. In Node, you've got default access to the outside world, to your file system, to everything. You could mess up a lot of stuff, right?
So, yeah, thinking about that, I'm surprised Node really took off as much as it did. Like JavaScript people, like I guess me, we're really pushing that. Like, nah, I don't want to write Java. I want to write C#. What is this, Ruby? I got rubies on my rings, not on my computer.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, everybody's like, just don't do that.
Yeah. Let's see. How to do gRPC right in microservices? Question from Muhammad. I don't know what gRPC is. Do you know what gRPC is? Yeah. Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, so gRPC is like a communication thing.
Okay.
If I remember right. gRPC, yeah, protocol buffers, yeah, I remember something with like protobuf. I haven't really done anything with RPC in a long time. If I remember, there's a couple. There's like a couple from Google. There's one that's called like Captain Crunch or Crunchy or something. I forget. But like, take a look at the Nest one and how they recommend to do the gRPC, and then see what the examples they have here.
I'm Googling Express gRPC to see if there's an equivalent. I'm sure there's some package out there.
There is probably.
Yeah. Maybe speaking highly of Nest again, because I really do respect the stuff they do. The documentation that they have here, top notch, I think. So
yeah, for sure. Like if you think of something, it's here.
yeah,
Let me
it's
see.
very
Like,
cool.
like look at this. I just thought about this message queue. I don't know what this is, but I'm glad I read about this now.
I know it feels like a really cool thing for discovery. When I first heard of Nest, I got super excited about it because I felt like I could take all my Angular skills and put them on the back end, and now I'm a full stack developer. Seeing the way their docs have evolved, it feels like this could be a really cool tool for actually doing that learning. For myself, my career started mostly. I had like a year of experience before it, but it mostly started with Angular 2. I thought Angular 2 was such a good framework for learning something, for actually going from zero to something.
Mm-hmm.
And Nest looks like a really good way of doing that here as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's just code through some comments here so I make sure I get everyone. I like how you scope your request in Nest. So more love for Nest. Contextualness useful. So this is more dependency injection. Nest is very cool. Very cool. Another question here. What is the best logging framework? That's a good question. I think I know John's answer.
Okay.
Can I predict your answer, John?
Go ahead.
I think John's answer is going to be console log.
Yeah. For me, like I know there'd be some requirements where people are actually like, oh, we want to log everything and search it later, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I usually let someone else deal with that one.
Well, I know for some of our internal stuff, when Matt was still with us, I was actually very impressed by the amount of value he was able to produce for our backend APIs we run for some of our stuff by taking our console logs. I think he wrapped it up in his function to put some like like the standard debug versus silly and all that kind of stuff. But then we had just like I forget which framework we're using, but we essentially had like a dashboard that was based off those logs to show, okay, and we had it hooked up to Deadman Switch and all this kind of stuff to make sure that our health. We had an accurate view of our health in real time based off logs, which was really cool. Like that, and the amount of time it took him was negligible for him to set this up because we had logging. So counterpoint, maybe, John.
No, I know. I see the value on it. The last time I really focused on logs was back in my .NET days, where I forget the name of the library that was used, but it's pretty similar to what you just described, where it was pretty much the health of the app. Logged like 500s and all those things, and then it pushed it to some database, and you could run like queries on it. But yeah, for like, I say find all the different logging frameworks, try them out, see which one is the best one.
Yeah. Let me throw in, because this is reminding me of something for Angular that I recently caught wind of. So Lars is working on this, and the folks at NG Worker, I think, forget who else in this group, but they're working on a logging framework specifically for Angular applications. Very cool. So if you're around, check it out. Lars always does really great work, including stuff for NX in the past. So great project to check out if you're looking for logging. Zach, have you seen a real burger for the hamburger icon? Yeah, I noticed that. John stopped sharing his screen now.
Oh, yeah.
NestJS.
I'm sorry, I got blurry. That's the best hamburger menu I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's very cool. Kyle Cords, welcome, Kyle. Hope you're doing well. Deal with dependency injection. As an app gets big, you'll either work in a framework that has it or end up reinventing your own framework. That may be a good point. I have not been in, I'm saying these stuff about Node and React. A lot of my work with that has been more prototypes and like smaller projects. I feel like I'm maybe not hitting the places where I really, I'm missing the value of DI because of that. Is that fair?
For sure. Like I have nightmares of things I've seen before. Now that I'm thinking about it. So thanks for bringing that back up. where it was actually in an Angular app where someone was doing their own dependency injection. We're not like what I was saying, where you do your own constructor stuff and making sure the order is right. And God forbid if you had a new dependency in something, and you have to reorganize everything. But yeah, that's for sure. Like it's super helpful for large scale apps.
Very cool. Thanks, Kyle, for the comment. More question from Keshav. Can I create a REST error mapper in Nest? Maybe a question for you, John, or maybe just something to look up in the docs.
Yeah, I think so. REST error. Error mapper.
Yeah, there's some comments back and forth. Yep, the burger. So I'm just trying to make sure we hit all the comments here. Yeah, we'll hit this one from Julian after if you find like the error mapper here. So exception mapper in Java. Yeah, I don't know. Do you find anything promising, John? If not, we'd just be Googling. So I don't
know. Yeah, I'm going to the Google now.
Yeah, cool. So jumping into Julian's question here. Considering microservice architecture, what is the best way between having an exposition layer that communicates with each service or having multiple endpoint URLs and the client requests for? Okay. Thoughts there, John?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's interesting. So you could have
what an exposition layer is first, maybe.
I'm thinking it's basically there's a service that maps to other services, right?
Okay.
So yeah, really, I guess it depends. Like you, when I develop something or when I build something, I always try to make sure that things are maintainable, right? Like, how would I feel about this in 2 months? Or how will like a junior dev feel about this tomorrow or whatever, right? You want to make things simple and easy to discover and maintainable. And like if you have 100 services, maybe like a exposition layer might be useful. If you have a couple, it might not be. It might be overkill and all that. Like, yeah, I think that's a whole discussion on its own, or just like architecture itself. Just there will be so many opinions on that.
That's fair. So it's more like we said before. It's kind of like a per use. You do an analysis there. Is that fair?
I think so. Yeah, you have to like weigh the maintainability and see the balance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. Chow is as advocating for the exposition layer, the API gateway.
Yeah, like why? Like, yeah, we could go more into this. Like, why wouldn't you just have like Kubernetes or an orchestrator config that you could see that in or something? Would you need another image itself to manage that, or would you just use Kubernetes?
Yeah. Well, maybe this brings up. This was one of the things we had talked a little bit about before we started, John. But so I love the dependency graph in NX. The visualization it gives you, being able to narrow it down into stuff. I think that's all really cool. The fact that it's actually accurate because it's generated from code is really cool. And it seems like a lot of the problems you have around the microservice architecture is understanding what that web, figuring out what that web looks like. It seems like this could be a really good tool for that.
Yeah, you have a good point. Yeah.
Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm saying you have a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the unfortunate part is, inside of our front end libs, we use like the TypeScript import statements to be able to tie that web together. we don't have that really here if we're doing like, depending on the connection, like we're just looking at all these different options. I didn't even know most of them existed, but the different ways of communicating between the microservice to microservice, we can't, with our current capabilities, we don't have a way of determining that, programmatically. We could manually set some implicit dependencies and build a really cool web for our microservices that way. But then we're kind of like manually doing it, which isn't terrible, but could be better to have some way of, magically determining all that for you. But like just taking the same tools we built and seeing this could be really useful here. Just putting the thought out there. It could be a really cool thing for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. This would keep for a whole different system. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Like, the best advice I could give is just play, play around. Like if you have a decent enough computer, you could set these things up to play around with.
Yeah.
I wish I had more time to play with all these things.
That's the problem everyone's having. I think I definitely have that problem.
Yeah.
So I go from one thing to the other without getting enough out of it. I feel like there's so much out there, and I have so little time. What are you gonna do?
Over the weekend, I actually found this library that is similar to Electron, where it has like a front end where it serves or it has like a part where it serves like HTML and all that stuff, but it's written in Rust. And I saw like the memory and the cycles and whatever else it has between it and Electron. And like Electron would use like 20 megabytes or something, or 200 megabytes, and this thing would use like 30 megabytes. I was like, what? I want to play with this.
Yeah. I've
never got around to it.
I know. I've been like, I was so enamored by Dino when it came out. Like, it's so cool, and just getting in just the little bit I did, like having native TypeScript and like clicking into an import, like with your IDE, and actually getting to like the source TypeScript was so cool. Like that, it's just like, why isn't the world like this? And then I haven't had much more time to get into it. And of course the Dino's uses Rust as well to kind of speed things up. So kind of more performant TypeScript. I don't think you're gonna beat like some other languages still, but it's maybe closer. But
yeah, this one that I found was called Tori. I wonder if I could paste this in.
Yeah, throw it in the private chat, and I'll pipe it through.
Well, so Electron wasn't 20 or 200 megabytes. It was 50 megabytes, and the Tori one was 0.6 megabytes.
Gotcha. 0.6.
Oh, sorry, binary size. Memory consumption is 30. Just read it. It's cool.
Very cool. Looks like we got one more question. I want to get to some. We'll go over just a little bit if that's all right with you, John. Do you have a hard stop?
Nope.
All right. Hopefully we'll only go over like 5 minutes. Let's get the question from Albert here. What's the best way to integrate NX with DevOps CI? Deploy, run pipelines, only apps that change based on NX affected builds. Right. So maybe John, you could take this a bit more, but like we set up affected to help your CI pipelines to make sure you only have to build what you need to based on what changed as determined by Git. So I don't know, any additional tips here, John?
That's pretty much it. We have some documentations on the NX dev site that will go and it'll run through some CI setups. Mm-hmm. And it'll be like mostly best practices on how to set it up so that you could get the computation caching and all that stuff. And it's really helpful for that. So take a peek on nx.dev and look at the CI guides we have there.
Very cool. Can you still hear me? It said my mic got unplugged.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so great. Thomas asked, do we have any examples for full setup on Azure DevOps that uses all the benefits from that? I felt like we had something about that, an article from a while ago, actually. Let me see if I can find it.
If it was a while ago, I think it was before. Oh yeah, we do have Azure, so that one would be on the nx.dev too.
Do you happen to have the link for that?
Let me paste it to you.
Awesome. We'll get that to you, Thomas. There you go. Thomas, it's almost as if your comment was like tailored to know what kind of content we had. So there you go, sir.
Yeah.
Hope that's helpful. If not, tweet us with any further questions or anything like that.
We should get a guide in here for GitHub Actions too.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I need to. That's another one of those things I've heard a lot of recently. Want to get into a little bit more. Let me jump into some of the questions that were asked beforehand. So these aren't necessarily have to deal with microservices that much.
Yeah.
So there was a question about the upcoming event for NX Dev community, namely plugin authors mentioned in the NX12 roadmap. So in our roadmap to NX12, let me see if I can grab the link for that. Let's see. Oh, I don't have that pulled up. Let me see. I had all my links together. I missed this one. But if you look on GitHub for our roadmap for NX12, we had mentioned that there's a program we're working on for NX developer community members. So people have been working on on like third-party plugins and that kind of stuff. We're piloting a program right now for people who have been working on that stuff to kind of try to support them a little bit more and get their work highlighted some more. Right now, it's just in the pilot phase, and we'll be reaching out to some people privately about that. If you want to stay in touch with it, though, I've got a link to our newsletter here. So as announcements get made to reveal more about that program, you'll be able to see it from here. So if you want to sign up for the newsletter, go ahead and do that. While we've got this up, let me put up the community Slack as well. So if you have questions in between our office hours or just want to talk to other people in the community using NX, have questions, that kind of thing, community Slack is a great resource to mess around with that and to work with other people who are working with NX and maybe get some more speedy feedback on your answers. We're working on stuff, so unfortunately we don't always get to stuff as quick as we like, but a lot of really cool people on the Slack with some really good value to give you there. Let me throw up I think that's pretty much most of the links we had. Remind myself to ask y'all to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not already, so you can get more notifications when we got more stuff coming up. And some other Nrwl folks have put out some really cool videos recently, including, I think, Victor. So lots of cool stuff coming out on our YouTube channel. And let me get to one more question here that was asked beforehand. And maybe, John, you can take this one a little bit. So for NX, this came in two parts, but for NX plugin authors, there's schematics scheduled to migrate existing plugins with the API prior to NX 11 with the builders and schematics versus executors and generators. So this is the change to the NX dev kit. So yeah.
So I'm gonna actually answer this question too with something else I saw here with prioritizing Angular.
Yeah.
So originally, NX was built on top of the Angular CLI, right? So we used a lot of Angular, I guess, terms and I guess resources or builders or whatever they provided. So a lot was easier, or a lot of the Angular stuff was already built with it or came with it. But there is an actual plugin from the community that has view support. But we're working on making that better by actually reading view files and plugging into the dep graph so that it could be fully powered by NX properly. Mm-hmm. But so Yeah, so originally everything was built on Angular CLI or built on top of it, and more recently we broke away from Angular CLI where we're pretty much running our own CLI engine, which is called like Tau or DAO, as Victor says it, DAO.
Yeah.
So that one is like it's a lighter weight version of like the core of Angular CLI, where it doesn't have so much. I guess it's just lightweight. you could compare the two to see the difference between it.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that we're moving away from Angular schematics Devkit to Nrwl Devkit. So the Nrwl Devkit one is again lighter, so you don't have to really rely on observables as much, and we use pretty much the mechanisms that JavaScript provide itself with like async weights and async generators. So to answer the actual question of is there going to be a migration to migrate from Angular devkits or Angular schematics devkit to Angular devkit, I wouldn't hold my breath on it because it's so complex. Like some of the APIs and at least for the interfaces and all that stuff changed, and we have to make sure that we get all of those things, and it's going to be super difficult to make a migration to catch them all. So in the meantime, we have backwards compatibility with the Angular CLI plugins, right? So the new NX CLI can read Angular schematics and all that stuff and be able to interrupt it and make it work with current versions and all this stuff. But I wish we had like a migration for it, but it's hard. Right now we're migrating all of the NX plugins in the NX repo to use Devkit, and because I actually migrated the React one from Angular Devkit to Nrwl Devkit, and I don't know how we would be able to write a migration for that. It's a lot of making sure things are caught easily. I don't know. It'll be super hard. So I say for your newer plugins, use the Devkit. If you already have an existing one, you could continue using the Angular schematic, I guess, notion or.
Do you know if we have long-term plans to be backwards compatible long-term, or is that a temporary thing?
No, I think it would be long-term because it's not too difficult. Like it's the same, I guess, like structure where we read from like a collection or JSON, and it points to different schematics and all that stuff. So I don't believe we're going to ever remove it. We're just like we're not going to remove the backwards compatibility, but remove like our mentions of Angular Devkit.
Gotcha. Okay. So a lot of the migration efforts was specifically on our side. I know we wanted to make sure, like for our React stuff, our React runners and our React executors, that we weren't mentioning Angular in there. That was like one of the big drives for this. But so we went through and we refactored our stuff to use the new NX DAO tool. However, as a third-party plugin maintainer, you won't need to do that. You can if you want, and it sounds like we probably won't have migration tools for you because it's a bit complicated. But maybe we'll put out a guide or something like that.
Yeah, like after we're done with our migration, we're probably gonna gather. We're gonna say what was the pain points, and we're gonna have to write it down and make sure everybody gets it too. Because we're doing it, and there's some things that will probably get you, and we want to make sure that we catch them first before we unleash it to the world and say, all right, go. Right? We want to dog food it first, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what other term could be.
Yeah. Well, and we part of us didn't want to make the world known about the new Nrwl Devkit just yet. I think for similar reasons, right? But it's out there now, so might as well.
Yeah, I think if you've been using NX 10 maybe 11. You've been using the new Devkit for everything. We have that backwards compatibility in for a while.
Surprise! Very nice. Going back to Nick's question real quick. So Nick, for some background on the legacy of it too, our founders, Jeff and Victor, they were actually on the team that released Angular 2. And so that's actually the reason why we prioritized Angular. We started out being extensions on top of Angular, and then we wanted to bring that out to more frameworks and so on. So and like John said, there's a really great third-party plugin for Vue. I've used it myself. It works great. It works exactly like you'd expect it to. So it's for a really cool experience. So. Yeah, and last question here, and then we'll get going. Albert asks, do we have any docs on using NX with GitLab CI? No, I don't believe so. And I don't know, we may at some point in the future, but for the most part, we leave. There's so many options with CI, it's hard for us to come up with a solution for each one. We usually lean on the community for stuff like this. So maybe ask in the community Slack. There's maybe someone who's done that before there. If not, it would be great if you end up solving the problem to publish an article or something like that.
Yeah.
Let us know.
And to add to that, a lot of the steps will be similar between the different providers, but the different nuances of the different providers might be different. They'll follow the same structure where you might want to use effective commands and then use whatever scripting tools your CI provides to massage it a little bit. So they should follow the same structure, but just different techniques.
Yeah, very cool. Rashid, hi. Sorry you're getting it on the end of it, but thanks for coming by. And thanks everyone for stopping by. Another episode of NX Office Hours in the books. John, you were awesome. Thank you.
Me too.
Yep.
Everybody as well. Thank you for your questions and
for making NX awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see everyone stop by. Chow, I know you're doing a lot of stuff out there. All of y'all working on the community plugins and making content for us. Thank you all so much for doing what you're doing. I hope you like the tools. We're here for you. We'll try to be here for you as much as we can in terms of offering support. So thanks, y'all. Yeah. See you next time.
See ya.